Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are dissecting the true scientific nature of management. We're going to take a fascinating journey, starting all the way back on the soot-covered factory floors of the past, right up to modern AI algorithms. But to really grasp how we coordinate human effort, we actually need to start with a massive, counterintuitive paradox.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Think about it for a second. Is it actually possible for an organization to do everything incredibly quickly, incredibly cheaply, with absolutely zero waste, and yet still completely collapse? I mean, it sounds totally impossible, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it is entirely possible. And that perfectly illustrates the critical difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Imagine a football team. If the players are out there running around the field incredibly fast, but they have absolutely zero strategy to actually score a goal, well, that's high efficiency. They are doing things right. But it's zero effectiveness because they aren't doing the right things. True management is the invisible force that bridges that exact gap.
So, Section 1, Defining True Management, the invisible force. Let's figure out what this actually is and how it transforms raw, uncoordinated effort into real organizational success.
Picture this. You and your friends decide to open a restaurant. You aren't just standing in the corner bossing people around while everyone else cooks, right? You're juggling a really complex mix of activities. You're planning tomorrow's menu, you're organizing exactly who does what, you're leading your kitchen team through a super stressful dinner rush, controlling the food quality, and, praying you don't run out of budget. No single part of this is just leading or just planning. The entire sum of these activities is management.
If we want to get academic about it, theorists Stephen Robbins and Mary Coulter give this everyday chaos a really great formal definition. They describe a manager as someone who coordinates and oversees the work of others so that organizational goals can be accomplished. It's basically all about taking those two concepts we just talked about, efficiency and effectiveness, and balancing them to actually hit a real target. And this brilliant framework ultimately boils down to 4 highly teachable pillars: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. These are the fundamental steps that keep literally any organization, whether it's a tiny local cafe or a massive multinational tech giant, from just spinning into absolute chaos. Moving right along to Section 2, the historical evolution, from stopwatches to chaos. How did we actually arrive at this nice, clean, 4-step understanding? Let's take a quick chronological journey to see how management evolved right alongside the Industrial Revolution. It's been a pretty rapid and fascinating evolution. We started way back in the late 19th century, literally obsessing over how fast a factory worker could move. Then we rapidly progressed through rigid administrative bureaucracy until we finally realized that, hey, organizations are actually deeply complex human ecosystems. Frederick Taylor is a huge part of this story. He viewed management strictly as the science of efficiency. The guy was hyper-focused on standardizing work. He literally stood over bricklayers and assembly line workers with stopwatches to measure their exact movements down to the second. Now, this was a real game changer for productivity, for sure, but it carried a massive dehumanizing risk, essentially treating human beings like they were mere mechanical cogs in a giant machine. But thankfully, pioneers like Mary Parker Follett completely shifted that paradigm. She argued that, quote, management is about constructive conflict and collaboration. She introduced this radical idea that management isn't just about top-down commands and stopwatches. It's actually about building human cooperation and finding ways to resolve inevitable conflicts constructively. Building on that crucial human element, Herbert Simon brought a heavy dose of reality to the field. He proved that managers almost never operate in perfect, predictable conditions. Management is actually about making decisions under what he called bounded rationality. Basically meaning managers are always forced to make crucial choices with imperfect information, immense pressure, and severely limited time. And Henri brilliantly illustrated that real managerial work isn't some neat, predictable checklist. When he went out and actually observed managers in the wild, he found a chaotic, highly fragmented reality. The scientific truth of management involves constant interruptions, a heavy reliance on quick, informal communication, and just continuous on-the-fly problem solving. All right, Section 3, Busting Management Myths. Theory versus reality. By combining all these historical theories, from Taylor's harsh efficiency all the way to Mintzberg's daily chaos, we can officially unmask and bust some of the absolute biggest myths surrounding what a manager actually does.
The most crucial reality check here is that management is absolutely not just about being the boss, and a great manager definitely doesn't do everything themselves. Instead, they create the conditions that enable others to execute. Notice, too, that there is no single best way to manage. According to contingency theory, the right approach completely depends on the specific environment, the technology, and the level of uncertainty you are facing at that exact moment.
This also perfectly highlights a very common confusion we see all the time: management versus leadership. They are not the same thing. You can be an incredible manager, highly skilled at allocating resources, planning structures, maintaining control, and yet completely lack the human influence, the motivation, and the visionary direction of a true leader. But to survive and thrive, the most successful organizations desperately need both.
Which brings us to our fourth and final section: AI and the future, the algorithmic era. Let's bring all of this into the present day. We are entering a completely new paradigm, where extreme global complexity and artificial intelligence are literally rewriting these classical rules as we speak. Today's managers are dealing with a landscape that historical figures like Taylor and Fayol couldn't have even imagined. We're talking about building genuine trust in fully remote work environments where you can't physically see your team, navigating incredibly fragile, globalized supply chains, adapting to extreme, real-time uncertainty. But perhaps the biggest shift of all is the sudden necessity to balance human intuition with data-driven AI. In fact, recent research from the OECD highlights the massive rise of algorithmic management. This is the use of software and artificial intelligence to partially or even fully automate traditional management tasks. We're talking about algorithms that are right now actively directing, monitoring, and even evaluating the performance of human workers. And this illustrates our final paradigm shift. The core job of a modern manager is no longer just tracking daily tasks. The new job is figuring out a really delicate balance. What complex, empathetic, or ethical decisions absolutely must be made by a human being, and what data-heavy, repetitive decisions should an algorithm support, or maybe just automate entirely? Which leaves us with this provocative thought to take away. As we increasingly rely on algorithmic management to boost our efficiency, when an AI system inevitably makes a management error, maybe it unfairly evaluates a worker or completely misallocates resources, who actually takes the blame? And more importantly, as algorithms start stepping into the role of the manager, what happens to the human soul of the organization? Thank you so much for exploring the science of management with me today in this explainer. Keep questioning the systems that coordinate our world.